why you burn fewer calories while dieting and what you can do about it. You've been dieting for months, you've been training hard, you're doing everything right, but the scale just won't budge. You must think that maybe my metabolism's just broken, but it's not broken, it's adapting. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. I've owned a gym for 10 years, I've coached thousands of clients, and people tend to get a little surprised when I tell them you actually burn fewer calories when dieting, which kind of sucks because when you're dieting, of course, you want to try to burn all the calories. So the fact that you're burning fewer calories can come at a little bit of a surprise and make things frustrating. But the good news is it's normal. It happens to everybody. And in this video, I'm going to explain why it happens and what you should actually do about it. So the reason this happens is a concept called metabolic adaptation. So as we diet, our body changes. Anytime we do anything with regards to changing our fitness, our nutrition, our body weight, our body actually responds as well. And there are some things that you can control and some things that you can't. So when you're dieting, there's quite a few things that's actually going on internally that's going to affect how you're progressing in the future. And like I said, the concept is called metabolic adaptation. And there's three things that are really going to play a role that you need to know about. The first one is anytime you lose weight, your metabolism slows. And this is just because a lighter body requires fewer calories. So as you lose body fat, you have less tissue for your body to actually keep alive and sustained, which means you actually burn fewer calories as a result. So it's one of the biggest myths and misconceptions that we hear is that leaner people have a faster metabolism. It's typically the opposite. So the heavier you are, the bigger you are, generally speaking, the faster your metabolism. Okay, so that's point number one that you need to understand is that as you lose weight, your metabolism actually drops. And as a result, because of the fact that your metabolism is by far the number one indicator and catalyst that actually burns calories, you burn fewer calories as a result. Number two, this one's a little bit interesting, but you actually move less without even realizing it. So as you lose weight, your body tries to figure out ways to conserve energy. And one of the ways it does that is it fidgets less and it just finds more reasons to stay still. So typically, if you're having more calories, if you're a bigger body and you're not dieting, then movement is not necessarily a big deal. But as you start to lose weight, your body does not want to move as much. It wants to maintain that same weight you had before, and you actually subconsciously move less. Believe it or not, it seems kind of fake and counterintuitive and just doesn't make sense. But it's a real thing. So as you lose weight, you move less, even if you're trying to be conscious of it. So it's just important to understand that it does happen and that you can kind of be proactive with knowing the fact that that happens. And number three, this one kind of ties into the first one, is as you lose weight, you're also going to lose muscle. And muscle is very metabolically active tissue, which means it takes a lot more calories to keep muscle alive than it does to keep fat alive or other tissue. Now, of course, as you're losing weight, you probably don't want to lose muscle. So your goal should always be to try to minimize the amount of muscle that you lose. With that being said, it is going to be inevitable because it's impossible to just lose fat and zero muscle at all. So your goal when you're cutting weight is to lose as much fat as possible with preserving as much muscle as possible. So I'm going to get into that into the next chapter, explaining what you can do about it. So once you understand that that metabolic adaptation is a real thing, then it's about thinking about what you should actually do to kind of combat that, or what are some measures that you can implement to try to make sure that you don't hit that plateau and that you're ready to go and have a long, sustainable, healthy venture. So we'll talk about that next. All right, so actionable steps here. But before we get to that, it's important to understand just how significant that metabolic adaptation is. You can burn hundreds of calories fewer than you typically do when you're either at maintenance or putting on muscle. So it's quite a significant amount. Understanding why it happens and how significant it is going to help prepare you for what you can actually do to combat it. So point number one here is try to increase your NEAT. NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That is just the non-exercise movement-based activities that you're doing throughout the day. And the number one way to increase this would be to go for more walks. Remember, point number 2 that I said is that you subconsciously move less when you're in a deficit, when you're dieting. So what you want to do is you want to proactively move more, going for more walks. Increasing your NEAT is going to be one of the best ways to counteract that natural decline in the in the amount of calories that you're burning, and kind of bring that number back up and even things out. Number 2, this one's very important as well, is don't over diet. So sometimes we try to cut weight really fast and for a very long period of time. Metabolic adaptation happens to everyone, but it happens more significantly when you diet aggressively. Okay, so there is going to be that natural lowering of your metabolism either way, but if you diet really aggressively and if you diet for a very long period of time, that metabolism takes a much greater hit. So it's important to not overdo it. So you don't want to go too aggressive, and you also don't want to go for too long. So usually don't recommend for going for any or much longer than 12 weeks max in a deficit, and then you want to strategically increase your calories to try to bring that metabolic rate back up. Okay, so if you've been trying to be aggressive dieting for a long time, chances are your metabolism has slowed, and you want to do the proactive thing, which may not be the convenient or sexy thing, but that's actually bringing the calories up to get your metabolism in a good place to get you back into that deficit. So point number 2, don't over diet. Okay, so go in little waves, go in little phases, so that you can kind of pick and choose when you want to go through these phases. Number 3 is lift heavy. Remember what I said for number 3 with what metabolic adaptation does. And as you lose weight, you lose muscle. And we want to minimize that as much as possible. So one of the things that you do is strength training, of course. So strength training is always going to be important, but it's even more important during a dieting phase, because you're probably not going to build any or a lot of muscle at all during this phase, but you're trying to preserve the muscle that you do have, because we know muscle is metabolically active. That's the one thing that you can do for your metabolism. So I always say it's very difficult to boost your metabolism, but it's very easy to ruin it. One of the very few things that you can do to increase your metabolism is build muscle. So try to maintain the muscle that you do have, lift heavy, especially while you're cutting. Number 4 is managing stress and sleep. This kind of has an indirect effect here, because as we struggle with our sleep, we're much less likely to kind of move around more as well, because when you're moving around more, that means you're probably more energetic. And if you're not sleeping well, your energy levels might be a lot lower than normal. So manage your stress, manage your sleep. These are going to have indirect effects on how much you're moving throughout the day, but also the decisions that you're going to make with regards to your food. So you're much more likely to fall off track, not eat foods that you typically would associate with your dieting plan, because you're just not feeling up to par and your hormones are all out of whack. So mind your stress, mind your sleep. And then the last one is be patient and adjust. We always want things to be predictable. We want things to be linear, but unfortunately when it comes to dieting, that's just not the case. So if you feel like you're doing everything right, it might be a good idea to do a self-audit and reflect how you're doing with your nutrition, with your fitness, with your daily movement, but also how long have you been doing this for, how aggressively you've been doing this for. Because when you hit a plateau, you have 2 options. The first option would be to keep pushing through, and you do this by either reducing your calories and or increasing your daily movement. And then the second option would be to realize that you've been doing this for a little bit too long, and eventually your metabolism slowed down and you got to the point where you're no longer in a calorie deficit, and that's probably when it's time to actually increase your calories. Okay, so do a self-audit if you've been doing this for long enough, and recognize if it's something that maybe you can improve on, or if it's just time to shift gears, because like I mentioned, the last thing you want to do is to be dieting 24/7. So make sure you take those diet breaks. Okay, so those are the big 5 things that you can do to actually keep your calorie burn higher, and kind of just be aware of how metabolic adaptation works. Okay, so keep your NEAT high, don't over diet, lift heavy, manage your stress and sleep, and then be patient and adjust if needed. So I know it can be frustrating when you're dieting and doing everything right, knowing that you're burning fewer calories, because of course you want to burn all the calories, but it doesn't work this way. Something called metabolic adaptation, understanding that it happens to every single person, and it's a good thing because it means you're doing the right things. You're moving in the right direction. You might want to lose weight, but your body does not want you to lose weight. So it's going to fight back. It's going to do things to kind of resist that. It's important to understand that this happens, why it happens, and that there are actionable steps that you can actually take in order to keep you on track. This can be the difference between having Short-term successes on and off versus long-term sustainable success. So I do hope this video helped, guys. We put together a free group. If you're a man over the age of 30 who's looking to lose some body fat, we put together a group that has educational tools. We have engagement and also a free 7-day nutrition reboot. These are very simple, easy, actionable steps that you can take one day at a time that will make a huge difference with regards to your health and fitness. If you do enjoy videos like this, do us a huge favor, like, comment, and subscribe. The free school group that you can find will be in the description and in the comments, so check it out, join the group, and we'll see you then.